Good morning, all. Welcome to the New Mexico Main Street Capital Outlay Public Infrastructure Funding Pre-Application Webinar. We'll give it a few minutes just to give folks time to jump on for those that haven't made it on yet. So appreciate your patience. For those of you just jumping in, we'll start about 10:05 just to make sure folks having problems jumping on have a little opportunity. All right, 10:05, so we're going to get started. For those of you, if I haven't met you, I have mine on full screen, so I can't see who's actually here. So for those of you that I haven't met, my name is Daniel Gutierrez. I'm the director of the New Mexico Main Street program. I want to thank you all for attending the FY22 New Mexico Main Street Capital Outlay Public Infrastructure Funding Pre-Application Webinar. So for many of you that have followed us, over this past year during the legislative session, we got $2.5 million in capital outlay. Those bonds were sold in June, so that money is available. So we're throwing out the application and hopeful to get as many applications as we can in, so we can try to spread that money around to different communities. But I'll go through just the process, kind of what we're thinking, and what are the priorities for this funding year. All right, so last week, or I believe it was last week, a week and a half ago, we I know Lucas Pedraza, our project coordinator, sent out the invitation to submit project proposals for public infrastructure funding, and that due date is October 1st, 2021 at 3 p.m. And as over the last few years, we used to have a really drawn out, complicated RFP process. We've tried to simplify that over the last few years, not requiring a full RFP, but just kind of focusing on an application that's pared down and just really focused on what you want to, what you're asking for with budgets and a description of your project. So it is a fast turnaround, October 1st, 2021. But I know we've told folks that the money was going to be available, so we're hopeful that everybody's been working on these already. And I know I've been in contact with many of you already as far as putting your ideas together, working with your local governments to get things ironed out so that you're prepared when the application actually came out. So hopefully that's where most of you are at, and we could get through this as quickly as possible with and get this money working in your communities. So as I said, during the legislative session, we got 2.5 million. The legislative language is focused on planning, designing, construct, and improved infrastructure in downtown Main Street districts and in local arts and cultural districts statewide. So it's pretty broad in terms of what we can fund, but the focus is on public infrastructure projects. The grant award, as I said, is available immediately. So as soon as we get your applications in, we select projects. Julie will work on putting the grant agreements and getting the notice of obligations in. And once that's done, we'll be ready to move these projects towards actual funding and get them going. Eligible programs, and actually before I go in, I should say if there's any questions, Jesse's on the line. You can either raise your hand or type in the chat box any questions you have, and after the end of the presentation, I'll go through those and answer any questions you have. So moving on, eligible programs, New Mexico Main Street, America accredited programs, state authorized arts and cultural districts or compounds, and when most of our programs I know now are actually combined Main Street ACD programs. But the idea either way, if you have, I think we only have one solo program, but the idea is if you have an arts and cultural district, you should be working together to submit a project jointly, right? So we can't fund multiple projects in a community. Again, the idea is to try to touch and distribute the funding to as many communities as we can. So the idea is just to work together. If you have an ACD and a Main Street, work together to come up with one project that'll serve both needs as far as infrastructure and improving your district. General eligibility requirements, Main Street organization must be an accredited program, must have a full-time executive director, and be up to date with all compliance documents. And that's basically in good standing. I know we're going into the field starting actually this month, for our annual site visits. And I know some of the questions that come up, I know some of our rural communities have a part-time director. That's fine. It's just basically full-time executive director, somebody dedicated to your Main Street program, to driving the work, but full-time in the sense that if you're only required to have a half-time, that's fine, but we need one person that is dedicated, right? So that's the idea there. Local government must be a partner in submitting the application, and they have to agree to receive and manage the funds if awarded. That's where the partnership comes in. Local Main Street organization is going to help drive the project, bring participants, feedback from the community, but it really has to be the local government receiving the money, and they're going to have to manage and work with the local Main Street to report. This money can't go directly to the Main Street program. That's why we need because of the anti-donation clause, we need the local government to be a real partner in this. So make sure you're working with them. We do require a letter of agreement to be included with the submittal, and we also are going to have to look at the local government's current audit on file with the New Mexico Office of State Auditor. Our CFO has to certify every project that we work on. You know, they have to go through their own process. So, you know, we can get the audits. You don't have to submit the audits with the application because we can access those online. But just, you know, just be aware that we do have to go through that process if your project is selected. You know, we used to require a full resolution of support with the application. We don't require that anymore because we know that can add time to the, you know, pulling the application together. So at this point for submittals, we just need and a letter of agreement that they're supporting the project, that we can get a legislate or a resolution of support later if the project is selected, and we as we're working on the grant agreement. So no worries there, just letter from either county manager or county the city county manager, whoever the local government official is that will be supporting the project, and agreeing that they can manage the funds. So previous MainStreet capital outlay, if you have some already, must be expended and invoiced by the date of this application. So if you have funding open and you haven't finished your project, you know, we don't want you asking for more until your current project's done. But the one exception is if you're doing a current grade blocks on Main Street or a larger infrastructure project that has received partial funding for maybe a past phase, but you're still working on funding the second phase. That is an exception because, you know we had to phase those that funding in because we couldn't fund the whole project at one time. But we do want to make sure, if that is the case, that you are up to date on all your reporting. That project is actually moving along and it's not stalled. So that basically that money's being spent. Project proposals should be connected to your economic transformation strategies and the district's MRA master plan. So, you know, we don't want, and the point here is we don't want projects that just come out of the blue. We want to know that you've been planning them. They're a priority, not just for the local Main Street organization, but the local government as well, right? So if it's been identified in your MRA or master plan, we know it's been vetted. It's something that went through a community process, and we know that it was adopted by the local government, so we know it's a priority for them as well. So please think about that when you're coming up with projects or projects that you've selected. And, you know, we're always open to talking through those things as well as you start working on your application. You know, part of the application, we want you to submit a full project budget, including funding gaps and all sources of secured and anticipated revenue that you already know about. So if you already have some DOT money, or you have some money that the city or county had already put aside for this project, we want to know, because it's a good way for us to know that it's been leveraged and that project's going to actually is fully funded with our money, and we can get it completed. And again, this is a competitive application process, so, you know, we want to give everybody, you know, the best opportunity. And, you know, I think our end goal is to get a public infrastructure project done in every community. That's why I know over the past few years I've been, you know, working with different communities, just, you know, that I really think that are ready to move to the next step and get a public infrastructure project complete. So, you know, again, make sure you're talking with us so we know that it fits the criteria before you put a lot of the work in, and you know, don't get funded because the project may not quite fit the criteria, or may not be as strong as other ones that that you're competing with. Oh, and then I forgot that we do want to get these projects done. So the goal is to get, if you're submitting a project, we want to know that they can get done by October 2023. So because we anticipate we could make decisions really quickly, get the funding out there, and get these projects started. So we're not talking about projects, we're not going to fund projects that, you know, are going to be completed 5 years down the road. We need it within 2 years. So that is a priority, getting this money spent. Matching requirements. We do have a minimum of 20% match. It's $2 for every $10 requested. Of course, we like that match to be much, much higher. But that is a minimum because we have to show when I go to talk to the legislature and I have my first my next capital outlay hearing October 14th. They want to see that match. They want to see that it's not just capital outlay funding the project, that there's other local, other state, other federal, even foundation grant sources going towards the project. But I also know that, this has been a tough year for everybody, but I know even especially local governments, their revenues have been the last year and a half lower, and I know there's lower than probably previous years, and I know there's a lot of priorities as they're focused on a lot of different things, trying to get as far as the recovery and getting things back to somewhat normal or as normal as they can be in the current circumstance. So, and I also know that construction costs have gone up. So if you have a construction documents that we've focused on before, we know that those prices may have gone up. So talk with us if you're hearing anything, as you're talking with your local government, because we want to help, we want to work with you any way we can. So we will consider previously paid professional planning and design and engineering services that, say, the local government put in to this project in the past. So, we want it to be within the last 2 years, but we know that this past year has been not a lot has happened as far as new community projects. So, we will take that into consideration. And we also will consider if the local government is putting in public infrastructure funding in the district that may be adjacent to or connected, even if it's loosely with the current project. I mean, again, we want to give everybody the opportunity. We know funding is short and there's a lot of priorities. So, if you have any questions, talk to me directly, because I can let you know whether that would qualify or if it's something we would consider for the match or not. And that's the cash match. There's also 40% of the match, may come in the form of in-kind contributions from the local government or the MainStreet. So any work you guys have to put into it, you can count those hours as that in-kind match, as well as the time and money it may take the local government to manage the grant. So that can fall into the 40%. And the one exception is communities applying for Great Blocks on Main Street funds, and that's to develop the full construction-ready documents for a 2 to 3 block area. There we are looking for a $20,000 match, because we found, that, and that's just contingency, because sometimes, we fund, I think this year's 110 for Great Blocks on Main Street projects, but it often falls short because there's also there's often engineering requirements and other things that we often need the additional funding. So that one is in cash, but I'll go through that later, because there'll be a separate presentation, I think, just for people interested in new Great Blocks projects. So we split these out into 3 funding categories. I know last year we had to really target projects because we had to get the money out fast. So we're opening it up like we did, I think 2 years ago, where we changed it up a little bit because we wanted to give everybody an opportunity that had, small, medium, and larger projects to have access to the funding. So funding category A, or 1A, is planning, design, and or construction of smaller public infrastructure projects, smaller to medium, but for small infrastructure projects, this is for smaller projects that need funding for planning, design, and or construction, but the maximum you can request from this year is 300,000. So I want to make that clear that we're talking maximum, and that means the project has to be done complete. That's the max. Any costs over the $300,000, you have to show that your local government or local government partner it has the money and is going to cover those costs, right? And that means if you have a smaller project that can be done within 2 years, you could use the money to plan, design, and construct, right? So you really have to think about the actual costs and the size of the project, whether it could fit. You can get all that done under the 300,000 if you're interested. We also know there's smaller infrastructure projects that, they're not great blocks projects, but they're smaller targeted projects that we will also fund just development of construction documents. The maximum there is 40,000 that you can request for that. And like the Great Blocks projects where we focus on the construction documents first and then go after funding for the actual construction, similar here. And I know some of you have gone through this option in the past. I know Deming did it this way. I believe South Valley did it this way. So you get the construction documents done and then we go for the construction funding at a later time. But just to keep in mind, again, size of the project, whether you can get those construction documents done with that funding. Again, responsibility over costs is the local government's responsibility. And I know oftentimes things happen, but it's hard for us to come up with additional funding once we've already allocated all the funding to projects. With these smaller projects, we do want to make sure that, again, everything's executed within 2 years of the awards, because we have our own deadline to meet with capital outlay. If we don't get them done by a particular time, they can get reverted back to the state, and we're out of that money. So Julie will be on you, working with you guys to make sure that money is spent and these projects are completed within that time frame. And again, previous project receiving funding for construction documents the documents must be finished before you start applying for the actual construction funding. Funding category 2, Great Blocks on Main Street projects. We change that these are for the dramatic upgrade of a core 2 to 3 block commercial area with a Main Street district. I'll go in more detail for the folks that want to do new Great Blocks projects this year, after we finish this first part of the webinar. But I think the key here is that we up the funding from 100 to 110 for new projects, just because we've been hitting that line over and over. So we are throwing a little bit extra money, but this does require, again, the 20,000 cash match. And it can be used for a lot of different things. And I'll talk more about that at when I go over new Great Blocks projects later. But total construction costs for Great Blocks on Main Street projects, and this is what we're shooting for, are projects around 1.5 million. We found that that's kind of the sweet spot in terms of getting something nice, but also something we can actually fund. Funding category 3 is construction funding. So construction funding only. This is for projects that already have completed Great Blocks on Main Street construction documents, also other larger projects, because I know, not every large public infrastructure projects goes through the Great Blocks process. Gallup, their Cole Avenue Commons project is one example. The Farmington's Complete Streets project is another example. But they already did have their construction documents done, completed, and they had other matching funding when they came to request. The maximum, again, is like it was a couple years ago, is 800,000 for these larger projects. But when you're asking for this money, we're agreeing, or you're saying that you're going to get at least the complete project done, or you're going to get a phase of the project done. So some folks, or some communities, did get some funding for the first phase. This is where they would come back for the second phase of the Great Blocks projects. But again, we only got 2.5 million. We were able to give larger numbers a couple of years ago when we had 4.5. So though it's the maximum, we're going to have to weigh that with other needs. And you should talk with us before you submit or come up with your request, just so we can give you a good idea whether it's feasible or not, right? Because if I get $800,000 request, there's no way I can fund those. So Again, we don't want you to put in work where, you know, it's not feasible. So make sure you talk with us before you submit. Applications you must, when you're doing this, you must submit electronic copies of construction ready documents and schematics, so that we know that they're complete. We can see, you know, we want to see the total budget and the scope of these projects, you know, the detailed breakdown of how the funds are going to be spent, even though we don't need to know that ours are going to be spent on this certain thing and this, just that you got the money. These are the costs. These are the breakdown. If it's phased, we want to know that that phase can be completed with our money and the match that you have. So qualifying public infrastructure projects, you know, and this is key. You know, we're not funding, for the most part, we're not funding public buildings. Our focus is on public infrastructure. The one exception is potentially funding historic theaters, but they have to be public theaters. We did fund one in Farmington last year. So if you are interested in the Historic Theaters Initiative and getting funding for a historic theater, you can talk to me directly and we can talk about, I can tell you more details about that. But in general, the focus is on streets, pedestrian safety, street amenities, you know, creative placemaking projects, and great blocks on Main Street, and other infrastructure projects. We will have a review committee that will review all the applications. We'll rank them based on, you know, based on readiness, you know, whether they can be completed or not, support from the local government, match. And again, match always counts. And I know it doesn't, not everybody can, and we will work with folks and we will take all those things into consideration. But again, it does help me if I have having a larger match helps me ask for more money. Just so you know. So any way we can work that out, talk to me again. If you have other work going on in the district and we can use that as a match, that'll be a huge help. We do, if you are selected, we will follow up with you. That's when we'll ask for the resolution of administrative and financial support. But that can, again, take place after you actually are awarded the funds. We would like a letter of support from your appropriate local council of governments, because they have access to so many different funding opportunities that you should be talking to them before you submit your application, because it'll be a huge help. They can help find other sources of funding, and our COGs throughout the state are great. We've worked with them many times, and they are a huge resource for you guys. But also, we are going to ask you guys to work with us to do like a 3-year property renovation and restoration and implementation plan and business plan to help capitalize on the public infrastructure investment. So those of you that have already gotten capital outlay, you know, we want to work with you guys to really build off that public infrastructure investment. You know, that's where when you get your public infrastructure, your Great Blocks project done, that's only the first step. The step after that is, what are we going to do to capitalize on that by helping local building owners, bring in new businesses, because, you know, we have found over and over that when we invest in the public infrastructure, usually that private investment follows, but we have to help them. And a lot of your technical assistance should be tailored towards building rehabs and supporting small businesses that are trying to come in. But just that is a commitment we are asking, because we want it to be more than just the project itself. Again, application due date is October 1st, 2021 by 3 p.m. You will be submitting the projects to Lucas Pedraza. His info is in the application or the call for proposals. But, you know, please remember that, you know, if you're waiting till last minute and you don't get them in by 3 p.m., our hands are kind of tied, right? You know, there is a process that we have to go to, and we cannot accept late applications. So there is a limit on the sizes of documents that Lucas can receive in his inbox. So if you have large documents, connect with him early to he can set up an alternative means for you to submit. So just keep that in mind. Again, because we're not responsible for if they're not deliverable, if they don't come in. Again, if they don't come in, if it gets rejected because it's too large, you know, they're timestamped by email, so our hands get tied. So please, please don't wait till the last minute. Submit them early, and if you have large documents, connect with Lucas. I think we can up to 25 megabytes is I think all we can take, but there's always ways around that, and we'll work with you any way we can. So please do, if you can submit your applications early, submit them early. I know we have documents due to the LFC, I think September 17th. So, you know, we're revising our public infrastructure pipeline, and that's for my presentation in October 14th. So any information I have from you guys, I can add to that initial report before I send it. So please don't wait till the last minute. The faster you get them in, the faster we can start working on these applications, or, you know, start reviewing and targeting funding. And I know I've talked to some of you already. I know, you know, what to expect, but make sure you're talking with us. Again, don't wait till the last minute, get it in as soon as possible. So with that, we will open it up to questions. I'll have Jesse, she'll either, if you raise your hand, she'll turn on your mic. And if you type questions in, she'll read them through there.
Okay, I see that Elizabeth Camacho has her hand raised, so I'm gonna attempt to unmute.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Sorry, it took me a while to find the unmute button. First of all, yes, Luca, thank you so much for the application process. For the urban Main Street one, I turned it in a little bit, and you were really super flexible helping with large documents. I have a lot of elected leaders. We signed up for, I'm from the city of Santa Fe, the Department of Economic Development, and I think you guys did a press release on the urban corridor projects that were accepted for the city of Santa Fe. So that got a lot of people excited. And then I'm getting a lot of emails now that are like, are you signing up for this? Are you getting the infrastructure? And I just want to make sure that I can answer correctly. If I'm understanding this, this is primarily capital outlay program, Main Street program funding for rural areas. And therefore, would Santa Fe qualify or not
Right.
qualify?
So it's for fully accredited Main Street programs. So I know the two communities that came in under the urban neighborhood commercial quarters program. They're project based. They're not fully designated Main Street districts. So
Yes.
this funding is for we have 31 Main Street, fully designated Main Street programs. It's for rural and urban. And I think the hope is to work with you guys to get you to be eventually a full Main Street program where you would be qualified for that funding. But right now we can't, we haven't, at least to date, and because we haven't had enough money and there's so much need, we haven't been able to focus our capital outlay on the project-based one. And it's really just because of the capacity on the local level, because the idea is to follow it up with like the building rehab, the small business development support. But we are looking for trying, and that is one of the asks this year. We have a 10 million ask, so we can actually open it up, capital outlay, to more of the project-based initiatives. But correct, right now, that program, the Frontier Native American communities and the urban neighborhood commercial corridor community initiatives aren't eligible for this pot. This is primarily for fully accredited Main Street and Arts and Cultural District programs.
Understood. Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, there's just one other question from Warren in Farmington about open grant cycles and if he could apply.
Open grant cycles.
Oh, sorry,
So,
previous open grants.
so Warren, I know you guys have the, this past year you got the historic theaters funding. So if that's still open and it hasn't been spent, then you would be ineligible to apply this year.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. I assumed that was the case, but I just wanted to make sure. So,
No, sure thing, sure thing.
Thank
But
you.
hopefully we get that done next year, and then we could apply for another project next year.
yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, we're on track, hopefully, to have that done, hopefully by the end of this year. So, we'll keep you posted on that.
Great, great.
Perfect.
Okay, I see that Chantel has her hand raised, so I'm gonna unmute her.
Hi, Daniel. It's Chantel from Santa Rosa.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. I'm here with our city manager, and we're really excited about making our application. Where can we find the application? Just being a first-time, city that's going to be applying for the funding category 2.
Sure. So I know Lucas sent them out, and they should be on our website. And if not, I'll make sure. I'd have to ask Jesse if we got it up there or not yet. But we will get it up on our website. But we can resend it to you guys, and you can send it to your local government. We can do that right now.
Fantastic. And also, in regards to the letter of agreement with the city, is there kind of like a boilerplate agreement that is used for the right verbiage?
Sure.
How is it?
So we do, yes. So we do have like a sample, like a template for the, and we can send this to you. It's a template for the resolution of support, right? So it would be similar language, what you do in your letter. And the only reason we know it takes a while to get a resolution, and sometimes that can hold up an application. So we don't want to require it up front. But if you can get it, that's fine. If you get it in early, that's fine too. But when I'll send you the application, but I'll also send you the sample of the resolution of support, and we can send that out to everybody as well.
Thank you so much.
Sure, and I hope you stay for the Great Blocks on Main Street, the next component, because I'll go more in detail in terms of what that is.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay, I'm seeing one from Lisa in Clovis. I can unmute her and then I can also read her question.
Okay.
Okay, so she said that she saw in the application docs that the MRA must be within 10 years. If ours is outside of that timeline, but is in the city comprehensive plan for updating, can we apply?
Yes, yes, and I think it's just the idea, and 10 years is actually a lot, but we know some communities are 10 years old, but there's still things that are in there that are important. Our main thing is we want to make sure that it's something that not just the Main Street community, organization is interested, but it's something that the city is backing too, that it's a priority for them. So yes, you would just state that it's in the current comprehensive plan, I think, when you're addressing that issue.
Okay, she says thank you, and that's all I'm seeing. So thanks.
All right. Well, thanks all. For those of you that aren't staying for the Great Blocks on Main Street projects, my phone, I'm always open. I'm busy, but I'll try to answer your questions. Phone calls are always better than emails, especially long ones, because it takes me forever to get through emails and I'm so backed up. But if you have a question, call me. It's so much easier to just spend 5 minutes over the phone than sifting through emails or waiting for me to get back to you, because sometimes that doesn't happen. So feel free to call me if you have any questions or concerns. And I know Lisa sent along, she had some questions for Lucas. He did send those to me, but we'll get back to you, Lisa, with questions on those, but it'll probably be over a phone call. But anybody else, feel free to call us if you have any questions. And yeah, we're here to support, and we look forward to getting this funding out and getting some more projects done in the state. So thanks. All right, so I'm not sure how many applications or how many people are interested in the new great blocks on Main Street. This is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite, I guess, programs that we have, because I think for us, it's really driven, not only the work from the local Main Street perspective, but it's allowed us to be proactive, working with the local government and the local Main Street program to really get public infrastructure projects completed. And we've already done one in at least some kind of phase in Tucumcari, working in Belen right now, and Raton was our first one. Las Vegas they're working on their construction for their first phase. Trying to think, whereas TRC is about to start construction. So I think in communities that we haven't done them before, it just really helps drive that new work. I think right now, from the last iteration, Barelas, Los Alamos, and Roswell are in the process of developing construction documents. So if you haven't been able to be part of this process, I mean, it is a great opportunity, and I think it's structured in a way that we come up with great projects, and we are working together and being proactive, so we kind of know the costs. We're working through it together. These are pictures of some of the work that was done on in Raton. Raton was our very first Great Blocks project, and I think back in 2015, I believe. But they finally have complete construction completed. It tied in with some other funding that they got for the historic theater, but it's just really created a beautiful space and stimulated, I think, private reinvestment. So the opportunity with Great Blocks is to focus on intensive design and engineering that lead to, in a 2 to 3 block area, that lead to major economic vitality and commercial building revitalization. Because, and again, we found that when we focus on the public infrastructure, streets, sidewalks, lighting, those things, then people start investing in their buildings, or people that didn't see opportunity there start seeing opportunity. And I know this occurred even before the construction started. We start seeing people investing in their buildings just because they're excited and they know that something's on the horizon. I don't know why every time All right, so the focus is a comprehensive redevelopment and revitalization of a core area of your commercial district. Again, 2 to 3 blocks is what we really try to focus on. And to the right, I think that's the Farmington, their complete streets projects. I mean, they went above and beyond. They did their whole Main Street district. So it was much more than the 1.5 that we typically try to shoot for, but it was their project. We kind of just helped them with a little funding for some of the amenities. But the whole idea is to find what is the core of your district, start there, and then kind of work out. Funds from New Mexico Main Street, we will fund the first phase. When you apply for Great Blocks, we'll fund $110,000 for the development of the actual construction documents. And again, we're shooting for 1.5 million around. You'll work with we'll provide funding. We through a capital outlay grant to the local government. The local government will hire a landscape architect that'll drive the work. It'll go through a community process. It'll go through design phases. Everybody will be involved. again, 2 to 3 blocks in that we want you guys to identify where that area is, but what you don't have to identify exactly what it's going to look like, none of those things, because that happens in the design process. After the construction documents are completed, then we will work towards the second phase of actually funding the public infrastructure project. That's where a lot of them that we're funding now, that like TRC, that has a complete, they've already gone through the construction documents, they're done, design process is over. You know, I think they got $1 million last year to put, and they had other matching funding to actually complete the project. So second phase, once we get the construction documents, we're not just designing, we're going to help you find the funding to actually fund the project. And after the project's done, we're going to work with the local MainStreet organization. The majority of our technical assistance is going to go towards building renovations, restoration, small business development, business expansion, creating new opportunities to really take advantage of that that investment. So when you're thinking, and this is mainly both for the local MainStreet organization and I think and the local governments that are working with them, you know, we're trying to see this as a holistic process, right? We're not just investing in the infrastructure, but it's in creating that vibrant space and following it up with technical assistance to help fill those buildings, get people back downtown, and make it a usable space. You know, we do, you know, every time we invest, you know, I have to submit reinvestment stats to the legislature on a quarterly basis. Local MainStreet district programs submit to me on a quarterly basis. So, you know, we want to see solid economic performance, you know, in our districts, and that's why I think capital outlay is so important, because it helps stimulate that, right? And you know, if you're not applying, you're not working on these projects, then you know it's hard for local businesses or building owners to invest in their space if they don't feel like the public sector is, right? So, you know, when you are submitting your application, it's good to think about, you know, what are the performance metrics that you see? Like, what do you see as far as can be increased in the economic performance of your district by getting something done in your community? And you know, we have you know, you saw we put out a legislative annual report last year. You know, I'd encourage you to look at that in terms of how we've measured success in past infrastructure projects or blocks projects. They're great examples of thinking about that. But I think the whole performance here is, you know, we need to show the legislature that we're putting our money in good places. It's a public-private partnership in a sense, because we're working with the local MainStreet organization as well. But you know, I think it's just the expectations and knowing that, you know, things are going to move forward, and how important it is, and that we do have to measure success. There are some expectations. Again, you know, I think I mentioned this, that, you know, we are looking at a 3 to 5 year local public-private engagement, you know, focused on reinvestment. And that's, you know, again, you know, technical assistance for building rehabs, and, you know, working on business incubators, just really building off that investment. These are pictures from that was recently completed in Tucumcari. This is their Great Blocks project. It looks great. We're excited. And again, now we're going to start working with them. They just completed their first phase. They still have a second phase to finish, but I think we're going to be doing a groundbreaking there in October when we're out there for our site visit. You know, again, the whole idea is to leverage private reinvestment. So this is the same thing I have been saying. You know, we invest in the streets, the right of way, and we follow that up with the business development, restoration, adaptive reuse, those type of things. Qualifying communities, again, just like the regular, I went through these earlier. You have to have a full-time director devoted to carrying the work of the Main Street, because we want to make sure that somebody's there not only to get us through the design phase, bringing people from the community, because we want them to have a part in the community process when it comes to what this project's going to actually look like. I mean, it's important. We want to, it has to come from local. It has to be, tailored to your community, but we're going to need the Main Street director to come and the Main Street board to help bring in people so that we know it's a true community process. We need to have a local government that's willing to partner with us in terms of managing, and securing construction funding and matching funds. And again, you're not alone. We're going to work with you. We're putting our money in, and we've put our money in all our other Main Street Great Blocks projects. And again, we want to make sure that public infrastructure, you don't have any current capital outlay from the Mexican Main Street that's unspent. The other thing to consider is if we fund a Great Blocks on Main Street project, you can't apply for any other project except for construction funding for the Great Blocks project until it's completed. Once it's completed, then you can start thinking about other projects. But we just want to make sure if we're funding the construction, that means that is the priority. That is what we're going to fund in the future until it's complete. And again, we have to make sure you have a good audit, and that's state statute. So we'll work with you. We can get access to your audits on the state auditor's website. As far as contents in the application, just work on just explaining, the project, how it economically ties to your master plan, the vision for the community, the ETS is for the local Main Street program, how the project could contribute to the economic transformation strategies in terms of what your vision is for the district. We just want to know that you've thought through it. This is something that's going to really help you move your work forward, both the city and the local Main Street community. Describe the 2 to 3 block area that you're looking at in terms of the initial, and it can change here or there after the application, that we're open to that, but we want to know that you thought through it, you have an idea of where you want it to be. We do ask for, we want to see an overlay aerial view. If there's any historic or district boundaries, or cultural properties located in there, we want to kind of see some visuals, right, that you can add to the application. Pictures of areas that, need further beyond the streets that may need some remediation and upgrade, because it just helps us get a better idea of the need and what can actually happen, right? If you know of any specific building renovations, put those in there. We just want to know what the opportunities are. What are the opportunities for creative placemaking projects that may not even have to do with the initial Great Blocks, but adjacent to it, right? Again, we just want to know that you're thinking through those, how they connect to your ETSs, and that we really have more opportunity than just doing the streetscape. We want to know that there's more to it, that you guys are thinking more to it in terms of how you can help us capitalize on that investments. So, I guess just last thoughts, just please remember this is a targeted comprehensive economic redevelopment project resulting in a construction ready project. And this project will be, if you're selected, will be added to our public infrastructure pipeline initially for the 1.5 million, but we know that's going to, a little higher, a little less. We'll see how that works out in your particular community. But yeah, it's a targeted project, but we're trying to think holistically with it. We want it to really be, community based. It's got to come from you. You're gonna have all the say in terms of the design. You guys are gonna work through it. The plans will be adopted by the local government. So it is a true three-way partnership between the state, local Main Street program, and the local community. Our revitalization specialists are available to assist and help you in terms of defining the project area and actually the application process itself. So feel free to reach out to me, to any of our revitalization specialists. Usually it's Will Powell, our architect, or Amy Bell, our landscape architect that typically helps with these projects. But feel free to reach out to us. You know, and if you're not thinking of the larger 3 to 5 block area, you're thinking just more of a targeted project, then, you know, you may be more of a candidate for the smaller public infrastructure funding. So just think about that. Again, we're open for questions. If you have any, you feel free to email me or call me. I try to make myself as available as I can. If I'm not available, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But we'll open it up for questions for anybody that has any. Jesse will go through and look through if there's anybody has their hands raised, or if you have anything in the chat box.
We had one question about the webinar recording, and yes, we'll be sharing this afterwards. And
yes, we'll be sharing this afterwards. I believe all the information I've kind of went over is available in the application. Maybe there were some caveats I added to it, but yeah, it'll be available for anybody that wants to go back or share it with their board or local government partners that weren't able to attend.
And yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, again, we're always available for follow-up calls. Let me know if you have any questions. You know, I'm always excited for new Great Blocks projects. And I know when I was, or as I've been in the site visits, and I know I mentioned this to some of you folks, you know, during our previous visits this past year, or even though they were virtually, that I thought you were ready for a Great Blocks project or public infrastructure project. So if, you know, I've talked to you about it, please do apply. I mean, if I've talked to you about it, think, you know, you've probably got a good chance of getting it if you you know, put a project together and work with us to move that forward. So, you know, because like I said, I want to do a Great Blocks project in every community. So,
Okay, looks like a couple more popped in.
okay.
Angela from Corrales is wondering if the application is either or Great Blocks or project-based application.
Yes, so exactly. So it's either for Great Blocks. That's why there's 3 different, I think, categories. Great Blocks, new Great Blocks projects being the second category, and that's just for construction documents for a Great Blocks project. The other, I think, option A for smaller projects could include design and construction for smaller projects, you know, project-based, or the larger construction funding. If it wasn't a Great Blocks project, but you already have construction documents, that's fine. You can apply for that, just for construction only, though.
Okay, and the other question I'm seeing is how many Great Blocks projects will you fund this year?
Typically, we fund 2 to 3, and I imagine that's about where what I'm thinking right now. And again, I won't know until I see what the other requests are. But I know we have funding to fund 2 to 3, so that would be my goal, just depending on how many applications we get and how strong they are. It's hard for me to say no when I see a good project.
Okay, great. That's all I'm seeing. Thanks.
All right, great. Well, thanks all, and I guess we'll close it up. And again, contact us if you have any questions. And thanks for moderating the chat. And Jesse, I appreciate that.
Sure thing. Thanks.
All right. Signing off then, huh?